I think I think that there was just different. It was a way of looking at life differently than our parents or their parents. You know, it was it was I don't know, a cultural revolution, I think. I had a great childhood, man. I was the only child. My mother was a nurse. My mom worked nights. She worked the 3 to 11 shift. My dad started working for the Army as a civilian. Of course, my parents wanted for me, wanted me to, buy a house in the suburbs and get a job with a nice corporation or something, and have 2.2 kids or something like that, And I just saw that there was other things. My interests were more in art things. So, this is the cave. This is where I lived. Lived here for 12 years. You got to be question authority. Just kind of, it was just natural. I had friends that went down to Chicago. I had friends that went to Washington to listen to Martin Luther's speech. So I wanted to just get away. So I went dance with the Grateful Dead. Coleman Cove, there's storage under here. And then this is a sink. And this holds 2 liters of whatever. At one time it held 2 liters of scotch. And it isn't things that are important, the important things in life are the people that you love and care about, and the people that love and care about you, and the rest is just fluff. And in the draft, you pretty much had to go where they wanted you to go, And I knew I didn't want to get in the Army, so I went into the Marine Corps. But I wasn't in the Marine Corps very long before I realized that I had been duped by politicians and John Wayne and everybody else, that I didn't want to go and kill nobody or be killed. Man, when going into the service, you lose your freedom, it's almost like being in prison. I had to serve out my time in the military there, but at the same time I was looking into different things. Even at one time I think I had Buddhist written on my dog tags. I got kicked off a Greyhound bus because I was sitting in the back of the bus with a black woman and her kids. People on the bus were complaining about me sitting back there with her and her kids. So the bus driver pulled off on the side of the road and told me I had to move up front. I says, I'm not moving. And he says, well, neither is this bus until you do. And so I got off the bus and I started hitchhiking. And my dad was a real, government man. He worked for the government. He had a picture of the president and the vice president on his desk. And I'd be smoking pot, and my dad would say, "Oh, let me try some of that stuff." I'd give my dad a little pot and he'd smoke it. And I'd run into town to get some stuff in town. I said, I'll be back in a couple hours. I'd come back and I'd say, well, how'd you like it? And he said, it didn't do anything for me. And I'd go in the kitchen and he'd eaten everything in my place, He worked all his life. And I've had fun all my life. I try to have fun in everything that I'm doing. And my dad on his deathbed said to me, he says, you're no dummy. He says, you've always done what you want to do. He says, I've worked hard all my life. I finally get to a point where I'm getting close to retirement, and then my health fails me, And that meant a lot to me when my dad told me that. I applied for a job at a place called Ealer Refrigeration Company up on Grand Avenue in St. Paul. And I walked in and asked for an application. And the owner was at the desk, and he looked at me and he said, "You get a haircut, and I'll give you an application." And so I left there, and I was pissed. So I went right down to the Civil Liberties Union, and I filed a lawsuit against Ealer Refrigeration Company because I saw a lot of women there that had longer hair than I. And then I kind of just I cooled off, and I put it out of my mind. And about 3 years later, I got a phone call from this attorney. He says, "I represented you, and you won your case." And I says, "Oh," I says, "what did I win?" And he says, "Well, you won." He says, "I got a check here for 3 years' wages, full-time wages." And I said, "No." I says, "I don't want the check." And he says, "What should I do with it?" I says, "Tear it up." I says, "That's not the reason that I brought the lawsuit. I brought the lawsuit because I was right and they were wrong." And he says, "And you're just going to throw away this money?" I said, "I don't want the money." I said, "That's not why I did it." I said, "I did it for the principle." My mother couldn't understand that story. She never understood it. But my mother was never supportive of me. She wanted me to get a haircut. In fact, this winter, remember when I had the beard, and the hat and everything, I didn't want to shave. But my mother's eyesight, she had lost about 90% of her eyesight. And she couldn't tell if I had a beard or not by looking at me. But she liked to feel my face, and she hated the beard. Yeah, I realize everything in my life right now is in progress, so yeah, it's all screwed up. Okay, this is 67 or 66. This would be 66. Woo! Can you believe that? Because it wasn't very long after I got into the Marine Corps that I realized, oh, what have I gotten myself into this time, So I'm just going through stuff. Well, all the furnishings, of course, my mom gave to me. I wish she would have given them to anybody else. All these drawers cleaned out, and all these drawers cleaned out. And my mom loved it here. She was real comfortable. She felt safe here. And this is where she wanted to die more than anything. I washed her face again and patted it. And I took her in my arms. I put my hand around the back of her head and my arm around her waist. And I just told her that where she was going was a much better place. It wasn't a place of turmoil. It was a loving and caring place. And that... And then I just told her, I'm looking at her right in the eyes. She wasn't speaking, but she knew what I was saying. And I just told her that she was the best mother a son could have, and that how much I loved her. And then finally I just said, Mom, it's okay to let go. And she never drew another breath, and that was the way she died. I was down here, last time I was down here was just, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I guess it's been now. My mom, she was cremated, and so I came down here first thing in the morning, and a barge was going by. It was really cool, and I had my mom's ashes. They gave me a little box for them, and so I sat and I had coffee, and I watched the barge go by. And then I just had a little ceremony of my own, and I placed some of my mom's ashes in the river. But it was really cool. Just when I finished, and most of the ashes had dissipated and the cloud was disappearing, and I turned around to go back to the van, and not more than 10 or 15 feet above my head, this blue heron flew over.